Pitchers and catchers report to spring training 2 weeks from today. And I think if you ask Giants fans, they haven't done enough to make the team good enough to compete in 2025.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide episodes 3 days a week for now, back to 5 coming up pretty soon in February, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and RotoGraphs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, been hosting this show since prior to the 2019 season, so coming up on 6 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day, or 3 days a week for now. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already. Please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. And where we get started is, like I said, we are literally 2 weeks to the day from spring training getting started, with pitchers and catchers reporting for the Giants. Not every team has the same report date, but for the Giants, it's Wednesday, February 12th, 2 weeks from today. And like I said, I think if you polled fans, they would, especially fans who are in the know, right? Like, I think you would say, okay, yes, Willy is a really good player, and they got him. They got him early. But other than that, it's like Justin Verlander, who's 40 million years old, and then a couple of minor league signings that we're going to get into today. So even under, not even, I don't mean even under, but under the previous regime, under Farhan Zaidi, like, they went after the big fish. They often missed. They got Carlos Correa, but then he failed his physical. So there's that. But at the end of the day, there was volume. Like, they signed a lot of players. And here we're looking at the opposite. Well, yeah, the opposite, where they land like a big fish, not the biggest of fish. We're not talking Shohei Ohtani. We're not talking Mookie Betts. We're not talking, I don't know, Juan Soto, but a tier below that in Willy Adames, a very good player, but a 7-year deal, right? So there's like downside risk at the back end of it for a non-superstar player, but there's not volume. Like, and this is a team that probably you would say they weren't just one player away from putting the finishing touches on a championship caliber team. So what, we keep hearing, I keep hearing and reading that they have all these intentions of going into the season with a team that is on paper like a clear-cut contender for a postseason berth, and hopefully a team that could do more than just make the playoffs. And I think there are several areas on this team where you could argue that they're not. I just don't see a team that is for sure. Like, I see more of the same. It looks like a team the last 3 years, I think they were at 500, 1 game below 500, and 2 games below 500. So that is a very frustrating little cycle. It's better than being 30 games under 500 every year, but at the same time, it's not great. And this is a team that on paper, to me, looks like more of the same. And so the first kind of topic here is that, okay, there's the free agent market, and we are, like I said, 2 weeks away from spring training, and there are a few of the top players still out there. Specifically, Alex Bregman is still out there. Pete Alonso is still out there. And starting pitcher Jack Flaherty is still out there. So Alex Bregman and Pete Alonso, we've spent a lot of time this offseason discussing those two players. They're both imperfect players and or fits, And a large part of that is that they both have this qualifying offer attached to their free agency, and the Giants already signed a player who had that in Willy Adames. And so the Giants are surrendering their second and fifth round draft picks in the upcoming draft for signing Willy Adames. And because they were a luxury tax paying team last year, because their salary was at a certain level that was high, they also are losing $1 million in their international bonus pool for the upcoming signing period. It's next year's signing period. They already dealt with that from last year with signing Matt Chapman and Blake Snell. They lost draft picks, they lost international bonus pool money. And so they're doing it again with Adames. And if you were to sign another qualifying offer free agent like Bregman or Pete Alonso and Nick Pivetta, a starting pitcher, I think he's the only one left who is those three, I should say, are the only ones left. Bregman, Alonso, and Pivetta. Yeah, that's definitely true. Those are the only three left with the qualifying offer penalties attached to them. And so is it realistic at all that you end up with those players? And also, the further you get down the road here, the more likely it is that these players end up signing these kinds of deals that the Giants signed other players who were like lingering on the market last year, short-term deals with opt-outs. And we have just heard from the beginning of this Buster Posey era as president of baseball operations that they're not really trying to do that. And also, Buster has talked about the importance of building through the farm system. And I mean, any team really should be talking about that. But if you're talking 2 years in a row signing multiple qualifying offer free agents when you're not already just swimming in talent, then it just makes it seem very unlikely. And so I think that not only that, but you talk about the financial commitment it would take to land a Bregman or Alonso. Maybe a little bit different if they take the shorter term deals, but then the average annual value would be higher. So I don't really see Bregman or Alonso as at all likely. And so in that case, what are you doing to improve your team when they intend on being clear contenders, from what I've read, in 2025? And you sign a guy like Willy Adames and he's in his prime, it just seems like it's the time to bring in talent to try to win now, but that talent is largely gone when you're looking at the free agent market. There is Jack Flaherty, a starting pitcher. He does not have the qualifying offer attached to him, so it would only be a financial commitment, not a draft pick loss and a international bonus pool money loss. And he had a very nice year, coming off a 30% strikeout rate in 28 starts. Very nice command, 5.9% walk rate. Had a really good season. The Dodgers traded for him, which is always a good indicator. When that team wants you, there's usually a good reason for it. He's only 29 years old, so he does make some sense, and it would further allow the Giants, if Jack Flaherty came at some kind of discount, the fact that the qualifying offer is not attached to him, it makes it a more realistic fit. And honestly, the Giants starting rotation, while they have a lot of guys who deserve to be in a major league starting rotation, it's also a volatile and injury risk type rotation. When you're looking at Logan Webb, that's not who I'm talking about, but beyond Logan Webb, Robbie Ray has had a lot of injuries, coming off Tommy John a couple years ago, pitched barely in 2024. Justin Verlander, like I said, 2, not 40 million, like I said earlier. Kyle Harrison, unproven but talented, and you want to give him a shot. Jordan Hicks, you could always put him back in the bullpen, but they are talking about the plan is for him to be a starter. And then you've got a lot of young players who deserve chances to start. And so Landon Roop, Hayden Birdsong, Trevor McDonald, Carson Seymour, Carson Ragsdale, Mason Black, Carson Wisenhunt, and others. So where do you make the improvements? Where do you make the improvements? And is this team like set? And I'm getting messages left and right on like Twitter. What are they doing? They're not set. They need to do more. And I kind of agree with you. And so are they going to go into the season with this team? Are they going to go into spring training with this team? It remains to be seen. But one of the guys we've been talking about as a potential fit officially off the board as of this morning. So we will get into who that is and what the ramifications are of that player being off the board in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's the icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you will score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. All right, here we go. We are going to get into a player who's been tied to the Giants for years, really, coming off the board, not signing with the Giants, and we'll get into why it was imperfect timing and the fit became kind of imperfect and the ramifications, like I said. And if he was kind of a fit, are there any other players who are kind of a fit that are alternatives? Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. Coming up later this week, 2 more episodes as we prepare for the 2025 season and spring training getting underway here very, very quickly in just 2 weeks' time. So, without any delay, the last episode, if you look at the thumbnail on like YouTube or the post I made on Twitter, and by the way, their plans are in the works to kind of expand our social media reach to other places other than Twitter. So a lot of you have been asking about that, and that is in the works. But the thumbnail, the picture is Ha-Seong Kim. And man, have I been talking about Ha-Seong Kim for a long time. A lot of people thought, not a lot, but some at least I know because they asked me specifically, thought that this player from Korea, Ha-Seong Kim, who signed with the Dodgers earlier this winter, was Ha-Seong Kim. Different player. So Ha-Seong Kim is not on the Dodgers, just to be clear. Ha-Seong Kim was still a free agent until today. So I don't think it's official yet, but multiple reporters, including Jeff Passan, Ken Rosenthal, and others, reporting that Ha-Seong Kim has agreed to a 2-year, $29 million contract with the Tampa Bay Rays that includes an opt-out after the first season. And it says the deal includes $2 million in incentives for 2025 per Ken Rosenthal. And so that was one of the big questions I had about Ha-Seong Kim was what is the contract structure that he's looking for? Was he looking for a short-term deal with an opt-out, or was he looking to just kind of secure that longer-term deal now? And it was an unfortunately shortened season for Ha-Seong Kim because if he had the year he had, if he hit free agency after the 2023 season, he may have cashed in for, I don't know exactly how much, but close to $100 million, like maybe $80 million or something. If I just had to spitball a number, he was entering his age 28 season, so he could have got like an 8-year deal or something because of how young he was. So it was unfortunate that he had a little bit of a down year and that it was cut short due to an injury he sustained diving back into first base on a pickoff attempt. So he does end up opting for the short-term deal with an opt-out. And I believe I mentioned this earlier, but that is something that Buster Posey specifically has said is something they're looking to get away from, is these shorter-term deals with opt-outs. And so the fact, it has to be mentioned that some might say, well, you should have offered Kim a longer-term deal. It has to be mentioned that there are circumstances in which the player wants the shorter term deal because a team is not willing. He basically, fair price on a longer term deal right now is not what Kim thinks his value is worth. And so it's reasonable for, if that deal is not out there, 8 years, 100 million or whatever, then and not even close, then it's totally his prerogative to take this shorter term deal, try to re-enter the market going into his age 30 season next year. So that's his hope. And also on a short-term deal, I'm sure he'd rather play shortstop, which is where he's most valuable, rather than second base, even though second base is a weak position right now in the league. So you could argue that maybe second base is possibly more valuable, but I don't think so. I think shortstop, with the ability he's shown to play third and second really well as well, I don't know. Ultimately, this is the deal that probably made the most sense for him. I mean, obviously it did. If he accepted it, then that it just is what it is. So he's going to play for the Rays, and he's hoping to have a big year, get those $2 million in incentives added to his salary, and then re-enter the market next year. And so it's entirely possible that he has a nice year, opts out, and then say second base proves to be an issue this year with the Giants, and that, or maybe even Willy Adames struggles with the glove like he kind of did last year. And then, I don't know, either Kim joins the Giants and plays second on a longer term deal, or he plays short and Adames moves to second. I don't see them moving their franchise record player in terms of total commitment in terms of money in Adames. I don't see them just moving him off of his primary position after one season. But at the same time, eventually he may need to move off the position, whereas Ha-Seong Kim is just so silky smooth defensively that he could probably stick it short for the remainder of his career. So anyway, there's no guarantee at all that he doesn't end up on the Giants going into next year. But coming into this year, there is definitely an argument to make that you should give Tyler Fitzgerald an opportunity to prove that last year was no fluke. So the thing about Tyler Fitzgerald, he basically had this monstrous July where he was just hitting homers every day. And he ended up on the season hitting 15 homers in 96 games and ultimately slashed 280, meaning his batting average was 280. His on-base percentage was 334. His slugging was 497. So that's a good season. He was a really good base runner. He stole 17 bases. He was caught only 4 times. Base running is not just about steals. It's also about taking extra bases and not getting thrown out on the bases in general, not just on steal attempts. And then defensively, Tyler Fitzgerald, he played first, second, third, short, left, center, and that's it. Oh, and he pitched 3 innings. But so he only played 38 innings at second base, so that's too small of a sample to really glean anything out of the defensive metrics. But at shortstop, we were looking at -6 defensive runs saved, -4 outs above average. In the outfield, in his major league career, which included some time in 2023, it was all in center in 2023, but he's done well there, but it was only in 156 and 2/3 innings. So again, small sample, but 0 defensive runs saved, 2 outs above average. And so I think especially if he were to play a corner, just that speed and I don't know. I haven't seen enough of him out there to really know, but he is fast, and that's one of the obviously most important things about being a good outfielder, but certainly not the only thing that makes one a good outfielder. Like first step reads and stuff like that are very important too, and your arm and decision making, and it's a lot about speed and kind of, do you take good routes to the ball, and how quickly do you make that first jump, towards the ball. Anyway, there were red flags. He struck out like 32% of the time, which is quite high. He also had an expected weighted on base average of just 292, which is below average, versus an actual weighted on base average of 357. So 65 points higher. He outperformed his expected on weighted on base average. And weighted on base average is just kind of a crucial offensive metric, basically just suggesting that he vastly outperformed the quality of contact that he produced. Now, when you're really fast, that can play a role and help you outperform your expected numbers, because an average speed player is not going to beat out as many balls that are hit on the ground, for example. So that can be a way for you to outperform that. But I don't know. If you look at projections, Steamer, ATC, this new projection system called Oopsie, and Zips, like none of them really have him as much more than league average offensively, but they do see him providing base running value, defensive value, and being a 20 homer, 20 steal kind of guy, roughly. So he is going to be 27 years old for almost all of the upcoming season. He'll turn 28 in mid-September. So he's not a 22-year-old. He is in his coming up on late 20s, but at the same time, I totally understand wanting to give him an opportunity. So this is the kind of difficult position that the Giants are in, is that do you give opportunities to young players like Tyler Fitzgerald, like give not just opportunities, but like starting roles, whereas since they're unproven, what if they fail? What is the backup plan? Brett Wisely playing every day? Like, what is the backup plan? They have one, they have options, but none of them are guaranteed. Like Casey Schmidt, Brett Wisely, Marco Luciano could possibly play second base. So they have possibilities, but it's also like not guaranteed that any of them will produce well. Whereas Ha-Seong Kim is a more proven commodity. So that's kind of the thinking. And then you could look at the same thing in the rotation, and that's what I'm talking about, is that you could give the ball a bunch of times to Landon Roop and Hayden Birdsong, but they may not succeed. Whereas you have much more certainty with a Jack Flaherty, although Flaherty's career has been up and down too. And so, again, where do they make the improvements? It's not entirely clear, but also I understand like not taking Tyler Fitzgerald out of a job. He could have been a super utility guy, but Buster Posey has talked about wanting less of that too, which kind of goes against the grain of what modern front offices like, which is versatility. I think he still is versatile, but they don't want him to have to move around. They'd like him to just focus on one position. And that position, since signing Adames, is second base. Plus, like I said, those defensive numbers at short weren't very good for Fitzgerald. Passes the eye test for me, or the fact that he wasn't good at short passes the eye test for me. A lot of miscues, especially late in the year at short. So I get it. I get wanting to give him an opportunity. But I also say, well, that gives me less certainty that the Giants will be good in 2025. But also it raises the ceiling when you have young players who could be really good. So it's a tough needle to thread. Tough thread to needle. You know what I'm saying. One of the two. Putting the needle through the thread through the needle. Oh my gosh. Okay. Coming up in just a minute. Giants have signed a couple players to minor league deals. Are these players relevant at all? They're certainly players who have major league experience and have had some success. We'll get into who they are, why the Giants made these moves in just a minute, and before we do. All right, here we go. The Giants have signed a couple of players to minor league contracts. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. Coming up later this week, 2 more episodes as we get ready for the 2025 season. Spring training, pitchers and catchers, 2 weeks from today on the 12th. First full squad workout on the 17th. First spring training game on the 22nd, and then opening day is March 27th. So we're less than 2 months away from opening day. So, anyway, it remains to be seen, like, are the Giants going to do anything else but sign players to minor league contracts? And we had a couple of them. One of them was a while ago, and we didn't talk about it really because that's how I'm trying to spell his name here. There he is. That's how little I kind of thought of this contract. The Giants signed Joey Lucchesi to a minor league deal. Who gets a major league spring training invite and will earn $1.5 million if he's in the major leagues. And so I assume that's kind of if he cracks the opening day roster, or I guess if at any point he gets called up, because it is a minor league deal. A lot of times these minor league deals with spring training invites include kind of opt-outs where if you're not on the roster by a certain day during spring training as the season approaches, the player can either stick with you or opt out and become a free agent again and try to sign somewhere else. So Joey Lucchesi, he's thrown almost 400 major league innings and almost exclusively as a starting pitcher. So it is interesting because, Alex Pavlovich reporting basically that Lucchesi gives him another left-handed option out of the bullpen, a bullpen that does skew pretty right-handed. They do have 2 lefties in Taylor Rogers and Eric Miller projected into that bullpen. When we look down the depth chart at arms in the minor leagues, specifically guys on the 40-man roster already, there's not a lot of lefties. I mean, you're looking at Carson Wisenhunt, not really a reliever. So I understand wanting a little bit of left-handed depth for the bullpen. Let's say, Taylor Rogers or Eric Miller were to get hurt during spring training, then I think there would be a good chance Joey Lucchesi, who's, like I said, a major league veteran, pitched only 10 innings in the major leagues last year with the Mets, and also pitched 115 innings in the minor leagues for the Mets AAA affiliate last year, and didn't pitch particularly well. I don't know exactly what that league environment is like. But anyway, Lucchesi, I saw some comments when the Giants made this move, like, who is this guy? Well, he's a guy who tortured the Giants. He was on the Padres for a number of years, and they just couldn't figure this guy out, which is like a story as old as time, unfortunately. But he spent 3 years with the Padres, 2018 through 2020, and he wasn't great, but in 2018, 2019, he was roughly league average as a starting pitcher. His problem was that he allowed too many homers, but in the last several years, he's kind of not allowed too many homers, but his strikeout rate has fallen a lot. His home run, his strikeout rate has fallen a lot, but he's only made 4 relief appearances, so I don't know exactly what the projection-wise would be for him as just a reliever. But the point is, he is a left-handed pitcher with a lot of major league experience. It's a no-risk move. It's a minor league deal. He only gets paid a salary if the Giants choose to add him to that 40-man roster and have him in the major leagues. Because he has no minor league options remaining. But just trying to quickly see his splits against left-handed hitters versus right-handed hitters. So, in his career, he's done quite well against left-handed hitters. They've only hit .238 with a .312 on base and .341 slugging. I don't know how exactly you calculate ERA against only one-handedness of hitter, but it says 312. Just good numbers. I mean, 25% strikeout rate, 8% walk rate, home runs per nine of 0.6. So those are all really good. If we look at his career against righties, the righties have hit him much better with a 249 average, 313 on base, and 443 slugging. So the big jump is in power. 1.4 home runs per nine against righties versus, like I said, 0.6 against lefties. So anyway, they made that move. Lucchesi is 31. He'll turn 32 on June 6th. So again, no risk signing, but one they made. And I'm sure Posey remembers them dominating the Giants in those, early years of Lucchesi's career. So another player, I'm just getting kind of the vibe that these moves are somewhat related to. They remind me more of old regime Giants type moves. These are players who maybe were good a while ago, but haven't been good in quite some time, especially this second one, who is Jake Lamb. So Jake Lamb was also a Giants killer who was good. The last time he was really quite good was 2017. Okay. So he was on the Diamondbacks from 2014 through 2019, but in basically 2 years, 2016 and 2017, he was a really good third baseman, slashing 248, 345 on base, 498 slugging, with pretty good defense at third base, 29 homers and 30 homers respectively. But since that time, we're talking 2018 through 2023, did not even play in the major leagues last year and barely played in 2023 or 2022 or 2021 or 2020. He's played just 280 games since 2018. 2018 is 2025 now. So, and in that time, he's been about 20% below average offensively, hitting 205 with a 306 on base and 359 slugging. And he's going into his age 34 season. I just don't really see the appeal of Jake Lamb, although the one time he did have a little bit of success was in 2022, which was split when he played for the Dodgers for a little bit and actually did well. But that is the only time. I guess he had a good little 13-game stretch with the A's in 2020. But other than that, he just hasn't been productive at all, really, since 2017. And so, I don't know. It kind of reminds me of the old Giants, but maybe they see something. And Alex Pavlovich mentioned that Lamb could be kind of insurance on Lamont Wade Jr. at first base. But if you have to play Jake Lamb, you're probably looking at a problem. And so anyway, they signed him to a minor league deal, and probably won't be on the roster, but I don't know. I'm not too high on this move. Anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, you updated on every rumor and story throughout the offseason. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter or X at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out a ton, so thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. Can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.